my mentor and good friend, John Noland, here on Hawaii Sports Update. And we're just going to go back and talk a little bit about how we met each other, how he got me into the business, and how long he's been in the business, and what he is doing currently, and some projects that he's going to be working on also. So and I'm taking this from you, John, without a further ado.
No further ado.
And here's my man, John Noland. How you doing, buddy?
Paul, thanks for having me aboard.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Glad that you're here, sir. Now, just tell everybody about how you got started in the business, and you can go all the way back as far as your mom being radio DJ if you want.
Sure, absolutely. My mom started out this is now back in the 50s, but she was technically, arguably, the first female disc jockey in Hawaii. And back then you had to be licensed to run a board. You had to be licensed by the FCC. And so, yeah, she was the first female disc jockey and got into radio. Went in between when she was singing in Waikiki. She'd sing at night, and then after she'd get off her singing engagement, she'd go home, sleep a little bit, and then run down to the studio and do a overnight, what they call the overnights. And of course, nobody wanted that shift. So she went down there and she did that for a while. And my grandmother told her someday that was gonna be the best or worst of her, but she started out that way. Later on, I spent some time on Maui. I grew up here, born and raised on Oahu. Went to Marinal High School, but before that, we grew up on Maui in middle school. And while I was on Maui, my uncle was in radio. And that's how we kind of got started also, because my mother went over there, and my uncle was a DJ on KMVI and K-Nui, two radio stations over there. And my mom started out doing talk radio on Maui also, later on in her career. Then when I got into high school at Marinal, like as you know, played for Tony Solito, basketball, football Pac-5 with Spud Patello.
There you go.
And while I was at Marinal, my mother was on a station called K108, AM 1080, which I'm on now.
And
which,
me too.
Yeah, which you are too, which really kind of blows my mind because it went full circle. But in those days, the studio was in Waikiki. So back in those days, no child care, you know, after you get out of school, you go down, and while mom was doing radio, I would sit in the studio, do my homework, and watch her interview people.
Okay, now, do you feel like that had some kind of influence, whether it's directly or indirectly, on you now being involved in radio and TV for so many years?
Absolutely. My mom was in it. When I got back from college, she was on another radio station, and I would come back from college and help her in the studios, cutting commercials, doing things that she needed done for her show. She'd give me copy to read, and so, yeah, by all means. And she also was a reporter. I'd like to say that she was a reporter. She reported both for the Honolulu Advertiser and the Honolulu Star Bulletin, and did freelance writing, and was the editor of the Filipino Herald, one of the first women to be an editor for a publication here in the islands. And so she was doing a lot, and I kind of, as far as that background, yeah, you could say that all that stuff really, I believe now, looking back on it, she passed last July. I was caregiving for her for 4.5 years, and so anyway, I think all of that is directly due to my mom and my uncle.
Okay, and you attended HBU?
No, I didn't actually. What I did was I went to, first I got out of college, high school rather, at Marinal, and I didn't go anywhere. I stayed home, and I started working in the food and beverage industry, Nick's Fish Market, which was fine dining.
Nick's Fish Market.
Fine dining, 5-star, and it was the best in Waikiki at the time. And so I started there, and then I decided I wanted to go to college, and I went up to junior college in a place called Cupertino, California, which is outside San Jose, which is now what they call Silicon Valley. And at the time, which I didn't know, but at the time, I found out later that Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, his partner, were creating Apple Computer right down the street at this De Anza Junior College where I was going. At the same time I was there, they were creating Apple Computer out of their parents' garage.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is, it really was. And then after I got my 2-year degree, AA in General Ed, Associate Arts, I went up to San Francisco State, where they had one of the best departments in broadcast, and I was lucky to get in the department. 2 years up there, graduated with a degree in communications and a minor in journalism. And in fact, Ann Miller, who used to write sports for the Advertiser.
She just recently retired,
She just recently retired, and Annie went to San Francisco State as well. And so did Catherine Cruz, and is now a reporter and an anchor sometime on the weekend with KITV. She and I were the college anchors at San Francisco State, because they have a cable. Back then, they were pretty sophisticated in San Francisco. They had a cable channel that went out to about 100,000 people in the Bay Area.
Wow.
And so we got we cut our teeth, as they say in the business.
There you go.
Reporting and anchoring. And then I came home for the summer, and I really didn't want to stay home at the time. I wanted to go back up to San Francisco. So I told my dad, I want to go back up. And my dad was pretty adamant with me. He said, now that you got your sheepskin, he called it your sheepskin, now you got your diploma, go out there and interview. So I said, okay, I will, Dad. So I went out, and I knew one of the anchors' son. And Bob Seavey, at the time, was the top anchor here in the islands. They called him the Walter Cronkite of Hawaii.
All right.
And I knew his son from college. And so I said, do you think you could set up an interview, a meeting with your dad? He said, sure. So I went to KGMB. KGMB at that time was, for the last, at that point, 20-something years, #1 in the market. And it's now Channel 2 and Joe Moore, but it was Bob Seavey and KGMB at the time, and they had all kinds of veteran people. And so Bob Seavey came out, and he was so nice and so genuine and so professional to come out to talk to me. He could have sent anybody else out there to talk to me. And so he sat down, he looked at my resume and my letters of recommendation, because I interned at the ABC affiliate in San Francisco, KGO. And he said to me, you got a great resume, you're a local boy, you can probably say Kalani'aniole Highway.
There you go.
But he said, but see that room? 3 years minimum. We don't just hire off the street. And so I said, ah, man. And he said, try Channel 2, and Wally Zimmerman, who was the news director at the time. And so I went to Channel 2. Same thing. Wally said the same thing. 3 years minimum. We just don't hire right off the street. And so he said, try KITV and Don Rockwell. He might hire you. And I went over there, and it turns out Don Rockwell used to work in San Francisco at KGO. And so those letters and my letters of recommendation and my going to San Francisco State actually resonated with Don Rockwell, and he hired me as a news reporter, what they call general assignment. You walk in from 2 o'clock in the afternoon and whatever's going on.
Just whatever they have.
Whatever's happening. So I worked there for a year, and then I switched over because of the opportunity over to Channel 2. They had a part-time sports reporting job, and Wally Zimmerman said, "You want it?" And I said, "I'll take it." And that's how it happened. I went into sports with Les Kiter, who was my mentor.
Absolutely.
The General, as Joe Moore called him and dubbed him, because he was doing a Hawaii Five-0. And in that Hawaii Five-0 episode, he was doing, his character, his part was a general.
Right.
So that's where the nickname, the General, came from, because Joe called him the General. General.
Okay, now your resume is very deep, especially when it comes to the Hawaii sports connection to ESPN, i.e. Larry Bill, i.e.
Neil Everett?
Yeah, there you go, your buddy Neil Everett. Just tell us about those relationships and how you came about those guys.
Larry Beal was actually started before I got to KITV. Russell Shimoka was in sports. Rick Kwan, who later went up to San Francisco, was there in sports. And then I was in the newsroom along as a news reporter. So that's how I met Rick Kwan and Russell working at KITV. And Larry had just come through there. He went to the University of Hawaii. And his dad was a longtime broadcaster at the same time with my mom, Ted Sachs. And a lot of people don't know that, but his father was in broadcasting, and that's how he got his start. And got the bug like I did in the business. So Larry went from KITV right over to KGMB and started reporting and doing sports. And that's how I met Larry later on, because, at that time there were only 3 TV stations, no cable. And so, if you covered something, you saw the reporters at the other TV stations at most of the things, the events around town.
Absolutely.
So that's how we kind of all knew each other.
And how about Neil Everett?
Neil is a special story. Neil came out here from Oregon. Everybody knows he's a duck. In fact, according to my old coach, Tony Solito, they're going to build a statue up in Oregon. I don't know if he was kidding me or what.
Wow.
When he told me that, I went, wow, that's pretty neat. And Neil came out here after he graduated from college, and he tried to get in to break in and started first at KITV part-time. And then he did some work, I believe, at KGMB. And then this position of a full-time, what they call a sports information director, came up when they hired Tony Salito. And of course, Tony liked to hire, as all ADs do, everyone. And he hired his own people.
Right.
And he hired Neil as what they call the SID.
Right.
And so Neil did that, and then he also did the radio. So I got involved with it because when I came back, I was on the Big Island for a little bit taking care of my dad. He passed away in '03 of Alzheimer's, but I caregived for him. And then when we got back from the Big Island, I was doing morning radio at KGU with a guy named Mike Buck. And Mike Buck and I were doing the morning show, 4 hours of morning talk. And that's when I went to go back to, because, you know, old players, you know, you're a former player. I went back to see my old coach, walked into the arena at the NBC. They were doing a Thanksgiving tournament. And for some reason, they were doing a broadcast that night, and they were missing a guy. Some guy that they had picked out, I guess it didn't work out. And Tony was talking to the vice president at the time, Rick Stepien, and all I heard was the earshot was, "Go ask Noland, he'll do it."
Johnny on the spot.
Johnny on the spot. And I said, "What?" And Rick came over and introduced himself, and he said, "I understand you're in broadcasting." "Yes. Would you do a live, can you do a color for the broadcast?" And I said, "Sure. When is this? When do you want me to do it?" And he said, "Tonight." I said, "Tonight?" And so that's how it started. For 7 years, I became the color. At first, it started with another guy, Michael, his last name's Langpap. I forget his name right now. But they had another guy doing it, and then he fell out. And then Kanoa, while he was at HPU, they had Kanoa do some, and that's how Kanoa started out. And Kanoa and I did some broadcasts together, which were...
Kanoa Leahy, of course, right?
Kanoa Leahy, which, as we all know, Kanoa was a pro the moment, you know, he, like me, in his family, he comes through family lines.
Absolutely.
And so, like his grandfather and his father, and somewhat like me with my mother and my uncle. And so they were in broadcasting. And so I did the game that night, and then from there, we added Bob Hogue later, and Bob Hogue and I became the team for 7 years on Oceanic Cable, doing what they call the sports package, women's volleyball with Tita Ahuna from Kamehameha and UH.
Absolutely.
And she won nothing but championships while she was with HPU.
That's
Brought her Lady Warriors. Now they're the Sharks. And then later on, of course, we did all of the men's basketball, which was great, and a great run to be a part of that program when they were on top. I was doing radio when they took the national championship. And I say this to a lot of people, you know, I've interviewed a lot of people over the years, almost 30 years of doing broadcasting and interviews with athletes and, you know, in the business. But the interviews that really are heartfelt, first, my old Pop Warner team, I got to interview my coach, Harold Hahn, because I was a Pop Warner player in Manoa, called the Manoa Paniolis. And when they won the national championship, they came home at the airport, and I was able to interview him at the airport.
All right.
And crying like a baby. And then after that, Tony Salito, when he won the national championship in the NAIA with that team of two-breaded with Hawaii players, Roger Huggins. I mean, it was a hybrid team. They were like an all-star team, really, because Hawaii Loa had ceased to exist, and those players joined on.
They merged, right?
They merged,
absolutely,
and became a super team.
Right. And see, people don't realize that's what happened back in the day. Now, I know, of course, you know my brother Mike Jackson.
That's right.
Who came over here with Will Carter, and they were the original team to knock off Chaminade about 4 or 5 years before Salito came, and then he, of course, everybody knows the legendary, statistics that he put up through coaching. And it's ironic that when we first started talking, you know, you was like, oh, Mike's your brother, and he's an HPC guy, not HPU,
That's
HPC
right.
guy.
That's right. They were called Hawaii Pacific College.
Exactly, and then now it's graduated into a university, and it just goes to show you the
full circle. Yeah,
and how small this island is, and how much of a family that everybody really is.
Yep.
And I thank you and appreciate the opportunity that you've given to me to get started in this business, and it's something that I will never forget.
Absolutely.
And we are here with John Noland and PJ here on Hawaii Sports Update. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be talking some more with John about what he's currently doing, and then we'll get on to some sports issues in a little bit on the other side of Hawaii Sports Update.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I host Likable Science on Think Tech Hawaii, and I do this because I care about science literacy in Hawaii. I want to spread the understanding that science is a vital and interesting part of everyone's life. I want to make sure the broadest possible spectrum of people understand the beauty and the value of science and realize that science plays out each and every day of their lives. I want you to understand that science is fun. So we bring onto this show each week guests who are scientists, from astronomers to zoologists, and we talk about what they do and how they do it. But most importantly, we talk about why you should care about their work, why you should see that their work has value and impact on your life. So I hope you'll join us Fridays, 1 p.m. here on Think Tech Hawaii. You can watch us via live stream. You can watch us recorded on Olelo, and you can see us each week. We hope you'll join us.
Welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update, and for those of you just joining us, we are here with my mentor, John Noland, also a good friend of mine, and we're just talking a little bit of story about how he got involved in the radio, how his mother was a radio DJ, and just about how he got involved, you know, in the business itself. Now, currently, John, you are doing a radio show, correct?
I have a radio show on K108, AM 1080 on the dial. It's afternoon drive, what they call afternoon drive, from 5 to 7. So if you're in your car and you're stuck in gridlock, turn me on and I'll bore you for 2 hours. First hour is sports. Second hour is current affairs, whatever's going on, potpourri. And so we talk about just about everything in the second hour. But it's 2 hours of what they call radio talk.
Yeah, and if you catch it at 5:35 every once in a while, I think it's Fridays, right?
Friday you are on every Friday?
Do a little sports update for John there on Fridays, and let's just talk a little bit of stories. You know, ever since I've known you, you're the best storyteller that I know, and you know, because you're animated and you've seen a lot of stuff and witnessed a lot of stuff that you know the average person per se hasn't. All the way from tell a story about Christian Brando.
Christian Brando.
Yeah.
Christian Brando. Well, the quick story, and I told this only a couple times on the radio. Once with Mike Buck, because Mike Buck went down to Tahiti, and of course Marlon Brando, the all-time actor, Hollywood actor, superstar of his age, comes to Hawaii. And while he's here, he stayed at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. He had two sons, Miko Brando and Christian Brando. And so I'm out surfing when I was about 12 years old, between 8. I started out surfing at 8 years old with my best friend, but my father taught us to surf. He'd take us out to the canoes, what they call canoes in Waikiki, and give us a push while we get up on top. And so I was a surf rat all the way up until 18, until I started doing other sports. But I love surfing, and so I'm surfing in Waikiki, and you know, sometimes you're out there and you're waiting for the sets to roll in, and things get a little boring, and so a guy next to me, and what's your name? Miko. What's your name? John. And so you're bored, and so what's your last name? And he says, Brando. And of course, you meet all kinds of characters out surfing.
Right.
We all know everybody's a character out there. Right. So, and my mother loved to watch the old movies, and so that's another thing that my mom passed on to me, was the old movies. We'd sit back when I was a kid, sick. Sometimes not in school, we'd watch old movies. So I knew the name Brando, and I thought he was just joshing me, this kid. I thought he was just pulling my leg. And I said, Brando. I said, who's your father? And he said, Marlon Brando.
Unbelievable. So
there's a big pause, and we're sitting on the surfboard, and of course I called him on it, and I said, well, where are you staying at? And he points to the Royal Hawaiian Hotel right in front where we were surfing, the Pink Palace, the Pink Lady, as they call her. And I said, well, then there was another pause, and I said, I'm going to call this guy on it. So I said, well, after we catch a couple waves, can we go in and see your dad? And he said, sure. He said, yeah, let's do that. So I said, okay. So we surfed, caught our last wave, went in, showered off, and in those days, it was long hallways with dark. They were kind of dimly lit. We went up the cage elevator from the back, and we started walking down this hallway, and he comes up through this big door, and he knocks on the door, and the door opens, and there, standing at the door with white hair in a ponytail in a black robe, is Marlon Brando.
Unbelievable.
And in the back is his son, Christian, who's watching television, Checkers and Pogo. As a kid, we grew up with a show called Checkers and Pogo, and he was glued to that television set, almost like he was mesmerized. And so we went in. Long story short, he says, hey, you guys hungry? Yeah. And they ordered room service, and hamburgers and milkshakes. And boy, in those days, they were the real deal, real milkshakes in those days. And then he said, do you want to go to the movies with us? And I said, I got to ask my dad. And he goes, okay, call up your dad. So I called up my dad. My dad thought I was losing my mind. Dad, can I go to the movies with Marlon Brando? Let me talk to him. So they got on the phone and they talked. And I really bummed to this day because I never asked my dad what he said to Marlon Brando.
Right,
It was two fathers talking.
Right, exactly.
So we went to out. He had rented a station wagon, and we all jumped into the station wagon, drove out to the North Shore, not North Shore, but Sandy Beach, and we went out, and he took a long walk on the beach, and the kids ran out, and I ran out with them. And then afterwards, we got back in the car, and we went to the movies, Kailua Drive-In, and we went to go see a movie called The Wild Bunch, which was directed by Sam Peckinpah. And back then, he was very animated and visual, and the squibs and the blood. It was a really bloody film. And it was a great film with an all-star cast. And so we went to the movies watching this movie, William Holden, and so it was a great time. We sat back and watched, and the kids fell asleep, and I sat there watching the rest of the movie at this Kailua Drive-In with Marlon Brando.
Oh, because...
And then I had to tell him how to get in because he didn't know how to drive in. So we went over the pulley and I showed him how to drive up the pulley and go around. And he dropped me off at Waikiki, where we used to live, my dad and I, in Waikiki. And
right on.
that was it, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, the first time you told me that story, I was totally amazed. And you know, I have a cousin who was in the music industry. You know, she used to work for Solar Records with Dick Griffey, the Sounds of Los Angeles area, with Whisper, Shalimar.
Oh man,
and
all the top
yeah, back in those days.
Second time around.
Yeah, and I actually have a story like that, but it was Muhammad Ali. Now, my aunt, which is my cousin's mother. You know, and she's passed away now, but my cousin Dina, she's very active in the city of Atlanta, and she's still in the music industry heavily. She took LaFace out to Atlanta after he finished his last album in Los Angeles, and helped him start LaFace Records. And then, ironically, Dick Griffey sold that studio to Suge Knight, and he hasn't got paid yet. But
something out of that like Fox show called Empire,
yeah,
right?
No, but seriously,
Terrence Howard.
The Babyface recorded his last album inside that LA studio, and then Dick Griffey sold it to Death Row, and he's still looking, like I say, he's still looking for the money. But
I think Suge's. I'm not going to give it to him where he's sitting.
Yeah, exactly. But to make a long story shorter, Muhammad Ali came to my aunt's house and ate dinner with us. Now, my cousin told me before this happened, and I had a girlfriend, you know, I mean, I was a basketball star, she was a cheerleader, and he said, I mean, she told me, Muhammad Ali's coming to the house. You can only tell one person. And of course I didn't tell my girlfriend because I wanted to tell one of my buddies, you know, so one of my buddies who lived right down the street from my aunt's house.
She's hated you ever since.
No, she
you
she
didn't
probably
tell me
still
that
doesn't know. No, she does.
Yeah.
No, but anyways, so this guy was a fellow basketball player of mine. His name was Robert Johnson. He went to the famed Verbum Day High School before he transferred to Workman, and we were a pretty good duo, you know, my senior year. And he just looked at me and said, Muhammad Ali? I said, yeah, man, don't tell nobody, man. Muhammad Ali's coming to my aunt's house.
That would be wild.
And not only that, John, he drove himself.
Wow.
Okay. He drove himself to the house, and he was about a half an hour late, and he was doing these magic tricks, and you know, he totally entertained our whole family, sat down and had dinner with us, and then he actually offered.
Now, what year was this?
This was '82, my senior year,
Wow.
1982.
Wow,
he
so
was, yeah, he was in good shape.
he was still in shape?
Oh yeah, he was. There
Was
was.
this before or after the Holmes fight?
Well, the Holmes fight, there was a little bit of delayed reaction behind that one.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
And then my friend, you know, he was just staring in amazement the whole time, and I was too. But you know, it was just incredible.
The greatest, the greatest.
Yeah, and so that's what he said. He said, do you know the two most famous words in the world besides Jesus Christ? I said, what? He said, it's Muhammad Ali. And he was right. And he was right back then.
In sports, and we do sports, but there are only a few athletes that transcend their own sport and go and, you know, obviously are charismatic enough to transcend their own sport and take a higher profile. Muhammad Ali, one of them, Michael Jordan, one of them, but Muhammad Ali was known all over the world.
Without a doubt.
All over the world.
Without a doubt.
All over the world.
Yes, sir.
And of course, my mentor, Les Kiter, did all the fights when he was Cassius Clay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Les did all of the on radio.
And then, of course, our good friend, Glenn Mercanti,
Yep.
who you introduced me to.
Right.
His dad was the referee
for what they call now the greatest fight of all time,
Yes.
of all century. It was the fight between Ali Fraser at Madison Square Garden in the early 70s. I'll never forget it because my dad took me out of school and said, we're going to go to the fight today, and I couldn't even study. I couldn't even, you know, I was in 8th grade and I was just beside myself. I couldn't wait for school for my dad to pick me up, and we went down. And of course, Tom Moffat, the promoter at the time, first closed circuit ever shown here in the islands, down at the Blaisdell. It was called the HIC then. And we went down, and we sat down, PJ, and as soon as the fight started, and as you say, Glenn Mercanti, his father, Arthur Mercanti, was the referee of that fight. And the moment it started, everybody just jumped to their feet like it was live, like it was right there in the ring.
Yes.
I'd never seen anything like it. It was just electrifying.
Absolutely.
And of course, Pacquiao, Mayweather coming up May 2nd.
Oh yeah, we're gonna
be
get to that. Yes, sir. Go ahead. You can start it off.
No, it's going to be a great fight. I like to see a great fight, like anybody else.
Yes.
I'm more, as you know, I'm more siding for Pacquiao. I like to see Pacquiao win. It's going to be an interesting fight because, of course, Mayweather is a counterpuncher, and Pacquiao comes with both hands and keeps you off balance, but he throws a lot of punches. And so sometimes that could get him in trouble, depending on how the fight goes. And so, but he's always throwing more punches than his opponent.
Absolutely. Well, to this point, we know that Mayweather's defense is almost impenetrable.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, I think if this fight would have happened about 4 years ago, Pacquiao would have had a better shot.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he doesn't have a shot now,
Sure.
because anything can happen
Sure.
once you get into the ring. But you know, you come off somebody who has 2 losses, and on top of that getting knocked out. You know, it's like after you get knocked out, you know,
it changes everything.
Yeah, when you see the pattern in fighters, it tends to you know, not be to their advantage. But Pacquiao does have the skills, and he does have the power to hurt Mayweather if he penetrates Mayweather's defense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that fight. I'm excited about it. It's welterweights. It's a great division. Hagler, Hearns, we all know. Roberto Duran. I mean, at one point they owned that division.
Arguello and Pryor.
Yep.
Oh, my
man, was that a fight for the ages?
Yeah.
Aaron the Hawk
Yeah.
Pryor. That was
Yeah.
and Alexa Arguello.
Yeah.
Just great fighters in that division.
Those were the good old days.
And the money is going to be obviously the biggest payday in boxing history.
Absolutely.
And so it's everyone I know is talking about it. I can't wait. I'm gonna go figure out where I'm gonna sit down and watch it.
Well, we might be in my brother's backyard.
There you
man.
go. We might be there.
You never
Hey, you're
know.
invited to Michael Jackson's house for the fight. Come on over.
We're here with John Noland on Hawaii Sports Update. My name is PJ. I'm your host, and we're just talking story a little bit. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back on the other side, we'll be talking with some more, talk some more story with John on some current topics when we come back on Hawaii Sports Update.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, And on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Aloha and welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update. If you just joined us, I'm here with my mentor, John Noland. We've just been talking story about how he got started in the business from way back to his mom, way back in the 50s, all the way to his honey butter days when Marlon Brando's kid, and all the way up into the current to where we are now. We're just talking a little bit about Pacquiao and Mayweather.
Before we go there, there's a footnote to that
Okay.
Marlon Brando story. I come
Okay.
home from college, and you know, when Michael Jackson had that incident where he did the Pepsi commercial and the pyrotechnics blew up
And his hair.
and it burned himself
Yeah.
very severely at the time.
Yeah.
The guy who rolled him down and literally saved his life and wrapped him, put out the pyrotechnic on his head, Miko Brando.
Yeah.
And he
yes.
became his bodyguard. And of course, later on, they became very close till the end, till Michael Jackson passed away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome footnote to that.
Pacquiao,
Yes.
Mayweather,
Yes.
May 2nd.
May 2nd.
Be there or be square. It's going to be in Las Vegas. And it's, you know, boxing, as we all know, has really taken literally a hit, pardon the pun, because this UFC, MMA, everyone's into that now. And so
Right.
boxing's taken a back seat. And so this is really the marquee because there are no, like you said, we just talked about Muhammad Ali. Back in the day, it was the heavyweights.
Right.
Was the marquee division.
Right.
Ali and Fraser and of
Right.
course Holmes and, you know, and Big George Foreman.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and they ruled that division. And now it's the lower. And now this is what we have now is Pacquiao Mayweather. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure after that fight is over, who's going to carry the torch in boxing.
Yeah, and you know, and boxing sort of did itself in, you know, with all with the Don King scandal and all that stuff. And you know, a lot of people don't like Mayweather because he's his own boss. But if you look back at what ruined boxing, it was the promoters. You know, it was the bad ones. You know, Don King and you know, he just corrupted the whole boxing world. And so Mayweather figures, you know, hey, I don't need a promoter. I can promote myself. Who can promote myself? Who can promote me better than myself? And he's done a great job at it. But a lot of people hold that against him and try to say he's arrogant and he's cocky. But I think it's a wise business choice on his part.
Oh, no doubt, Paul. Especially in this day and age, over the years, boxing is known for, you know, agents taking your money, managers taking your money, preying on the boxers themselves. But look at big bad Mike Tyson. He went through something like $100 million, and he just gave it away. And now look at him, he's broke and trying to get back to where he was. But if they don't go broke themselves, then right, managers, promoters steal your money, and it's a long history of that, which is sad for the sport itself.
Absolutely.
But you're right. Agents now and having a say in how your money. Look at MC Hammer.
Yeah.
Gave it to his brother, and
Yeah.
said he thought the brother was handling the money.
Yeah.
30 million.
Yeah.
Went through 30 million. So it happens in high-powered sports. We all know. I just saw a thing on the internet the other day, and it was 11 high-profile athletes in just about every varied sport who had gone bankrupt.
Right.
Guys you wouldn't think,
Right.
from the NFL to the NBA and back and forth. But these guys get all the money and they start just making bad decisions.
Well, the next list I want to see is, okay, of all these people who go broke, I want to know who their agents were, who probably got a third of that money and have skated away anonymously, you
Right,
know,
right.
with this guy's cash.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's the thing about it is, that's why I believe that college is so important, because if you don't get the knowledge while you're there in college, what happens is you're open to this because you don't know how to handle financing. and money.
Absolutely. All right, and we're here with John Noland on Hawaii Sports Update. We're going to wrap it up here, and much mahalo, John. Thank you, my
Paul.
man,
Thank
for
you, Paul.
being here, and thanks for showing up. Always my pleasure to have you here. And we'll see you next week on Hawaii Sports Update. Ahui ho. Aloha, this is PJ with your weekly sports update on Think Tech Hawaii. 21-year-old Jordan Spieth set the world on fire last week, as well as Augusta National Golf Course, tying Tiger Woods' record of 18 under par and taking home his first major championship in spectacular fashion. He became the second youngest player to win the Masters and has broken par in all 8 rounds he has played at the famous course. Veterans Phil Mickelson, Justin Rose, and world number 1 Rory McIlroy tried valiantly to chase down the youngster, but to no avail, as Spieth kept his composure down the stretch to win going away. Last week's victory at the first major of the year has everyone speculating once again who will be the heir to Tiger Woods' throne. Locally, UH men's volleyball continues to roll. The University of Hawaii still claims the rights to the number 1 team in all the land after sweeping the Stanford Cardinal in straight sets 2 times last week. The Rainbow Warriors continue to look stronger than ever by the way they blew away the Stanford volleyball team, led by the trio of bowls who have produced all season long, and senior opposite Brooks Sador, senior middle and All-American candidate Taylor Averill, and outside hitter Siki the Hammer Zarkovic. Another straight set victory on Saturday night finished off by the always emotional senior night in which all 7 seniors were honored, capped off the weekend for the Rainbow Warriors. The UH men's baseball team continue their up and down seesaw in Big West play last week, dropping 3 straight to Cal Poly, bringing their conference record to 3 wins and 6 losses. The Rainbow Warriors have now dropped 3, won 3, and lost 3 in the first 3 series of conference play. The Bulls now come home for 2 straight weeks to take on Cal State Northridge starting on Friday, April 17th, before the UC Santa Barbara Gauchos invade the friendly confines of Les Murakami Stadium. Alex Saulson and freshman Eric Ramirez continue to hit above 300 at 309 and 308 respectively. Local boy Kaeo Aliviato continues to be the Bulls' main power source with 6 doubles, 4 home runs, and 57 total bases. Catcher Chase Kawau leads the Bulls with 7 doubles on the year. Starting pitcher Tyler Bashirs is 4-4 with a 2.35 ERA, while L.J. Brewster is 4-3 and a 2.64 ERA. Rounding out the rotation is homegrown boy Jared Awakawa, who is 2-1 with a 3.24 ERA. Closer Cody Culp has 4 of the team's 5 saves. Sophomore lefty Quentin Torres Costa has been up and down all year, but lately he has been dialed in with 34 strikeouts and only 24 innings pitched. This is PJ with the weekly sports update here on Think Tech Hawaii. We'll see you next week on Hawaii Sports Update.